This is the Neurosurgery Podcast. Welcome back to the Neurosurgery Podcast. Tonight we are joined by a titan of medical social media and management and the industry outside of the operating room. Someone who I have thought of as a friend for about a year now, even though this is the first time we're speaking to each other. Of course, the great and powerful Dutch Rojas.
Oh my gosh! Oh, sorry, I interrupted. Please continue. I was just like, wow. Okay.
That's right. So Dutch is a friend through Anthony DiGiorgio, a great friend of the show, and we're going to be talking about your life, your career in the healthcare industry space, how you got there, and what you're doing today. But before we get into all those details, Dutch, welcome to the show. Please take a moment and introduce yourself a little better than I can.
Well, I mean, you did a pretty great job. I feel like I ought to send a check. Like, do you take Apple Cash? I can wallet it to you right now. Dr. Wang, you did a great job hiring him because this is amazing.
I'm a resident. I accept all forms of payment.
Yes, I bet you do. That is not a life anyone envies. I mean, it's a good learning life, but not, I remember the days of being in a New York basement and just working.
Wow.
It was pretty, I mean, the hours are long, right? I mean, they're 100-hour weeks. Yeah. And that's just how you, like, if you don't do it, you can't learn. It stinks. So I'm sorry for you, but I'm also happy. Thank you for being a neurosurgeon. Appreciate it. We need good ones.
Yeah. So speaking of grueling training, you're a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Thank you for your service.
Oh, and 100%.
You have your fingers in so many pies and so many different companies and activities. Before we dive into chronologically the arc of your life, take a moment and just tell our listeners what are some of the things you're doing these days.
Well, probably the biggest thing I'm trying to do is really accomplish two things. One, if physicians want to stay in independent practice of medicine, then I'm really trying to help them get there. So we use a federated model, which is a good academic term for people to know. And the federated model is essentially like the basis for Ace Hardware. It's the basis for Uber. It's the basis for Airbnb. It's the basis for a ton of businesses. F1 is a really famous one today. I love that story. And basically what we do is we allow everyone to stay autonomous while helping them with the business side of managing their projects. But more importantly than managing them, by working together, it's almost like a GPO, where if you're a neurosurgeon in San Francisco, or you run a neurosurgery practice like Dr. Dan Choi does in New York, the two of you, if you both own ambulatory surgery centers, or you both own labs, or you both own whatever it might be, maybe clinic buildings around your area, you can do all of the property and casualty insurance together. Now, for a lot of listeners, that doesn't mean anything, but if you have a small physician-owned hospital, that's $1 million in premium, which you could bring down to $400,000 or $500,000 by collaborating. So we found, like, I traveled around the country after I sold our last business, Q3 of 22, and I started just asking doctors like Dr. Wang, like, how can we help? What are your biggest business issues? What are you doing? And then out of that, I visited almost 100 practices. We kind of came up with, like, what are the top 10 things that physicians need help with? And the reason this is important is when you think of the answer of private equity and you think of the answer that health systems are offering through employment or PE through buyouts, what happens is we're getting a trade-off that we didn't want. We wanted to trade the insecurity of entrepreneurship and the damage, right? Like, hey, I can't get a good payer contract. My managed care is really difficult. That's all really hard when you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 10 or 20 docs. It's really, really tough. And so people say, well, I'm going to go work at a health system because now I'm going to get a paycheck, which is really good. I'm telling you, you breathe easier. Like, I just know you do. And then all of a sudden, other things are taken away. And so in the academic world, we have a word that's called being overserved. And overserved means I got what I wanted, but then I got too much, right? Like, a lot of physicians will complain. I'm not a doc, so I don't know. But physicians will say, I can't practice medicine the way I want. I have to kind of follow an algorithm and do certain things that the hospital demands. And I don't want to do those things. If I was in private practice, I wouldn't. I would do 45-minute visits or 1 hour visits, right? But they can't because they're at the hospitals, like they work for the hospital, and that's the way it goes. And so we tried to find services that allowed doctors to almost reach the equilibrium, not being underserved and not being overserved. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but that's kind of where I'm trying to get to, is to kind of stand in the middle for a little while and then say, okay, now you're on your own, because I don't want to run these businesses forever. So we've got 6 groups in 6 states that are doing this. We got, I don't know, 8 to 10,000 positions. And the whole goal is, how do you keep independents that want to be independent? And how do you take some that are employed that go, I really have the heart to be independent, and make them independent?
Dutch, you're getting me fired up now. I'm going to get controversial.
I
Okay,
know.
so
Let's go.
okay, all right.
I'm
You got
ready.
to tell me, because I'm just an idiotic neurosurgeon. I don't know business, but I've been saying for a long time now. So I'm
Yeah.
25 years in, so I've seen this happen, right?
Yes.
That and maybe I shouldn't say the only, and I'm going to get in trouble, but one of the major reasons why people who go work in an employed model in a health system are paid so well is because there are enough private practitioners and busy academicians that are cranking the,
Oh yeah.
really busy practices, and they can say, well, the competitive MGMA rate or competitive rate, I could go to such and such and do this. But as soon as enough people are just employed, then the floor is going to fall out in these
It's going to
nice
drop. Yes.
settings, right? Is that true or
Yes.
not?
Well, look, I was with the neurosurgeons last week, as you guys know, at PHA. You guys had a wonderful contingent there. It was lovely. Everybody knows, because I say it all the time, and I've been saying it for 20 years. I love the neurosurgeons the most. They're my favorite specialty. My very first date with my wife, this is important, was watching a Dr. Spetzler surgery. I had to go to Barrow, and we were supposed to go to dinner, and my wife, my far superior better half, she is a neuroscientist from King's College. And I said, you know what? Like, I know this is our first date. I know it's nerdy, but like, I got to go see Dr. Spetzler at Barrow, and we're going to watch a surgery that he's doing. Like, do you want to go with me? And she was all in. And I knew I had to marry her that very second. But the point being, I talked to the neurosurgeons. Then I talked to the Society for Vascular Surgery. Then I talked to a bunch of the dermatologists. Then I talked to the ENTs this week, and that's just like in the last 10 days. And everybody says what you're saying, Dr. Wang. Everybody says it, like, we need people to be in private practice, because if all of us are employed, which is what I believe CMS wants, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, then we will just be a commodity. We'll lose our profession, and all of our power will go away. And I know that was a long-winded answer, but I do think you're 100% spot on. And I don't think that's controversial.
Well, first of all, you mentioned PHA. That's the Physician-Led Healthcare for America Associate. I know
Yep.
that you're involved in the leadership of that, and the meeting was a week or so ago in Santa Fe. We did have a great delegation there
Oh,
from the Council of State Neurosurgical Societies, the CSNS, that I've been working with more and more. People who have been on this show, Dr. Lou Toomey Allen, Anthony DiGiorgio, Brian Gantworker, some other heavy hitters with the
I was about to
CSNS.
say, you got the rock stars on the show.
That's right. They're our friends. Mick Perez Crew was there, and I saw some photos. It looked like a very fun meeting, a very beautiful setting, and that you guys got a lot done. But I am curious, Dutch, because
Yes, sir.
now, I could sit here and listen to you talk about your activities all night, and I think I would enjoy it. Maybe break out some cigars, but I am
Yeah.
curious how you came to be. If you wouldn't mind casting
Oh,
your mind
sure.
back for a little bit,
Sure.
we talked about your service in the Marine Corps, which I'd love to hear about. But go way back. I know that you weren't born in this country, and
Right.
now here you are, a leader of the American medical industry, fighting for the independence of the physicians here. So,
Well,
how did this?
that's a little far. I mean, I don't know about all that, but I look, number one,
How did you get?
um,
Then let me narrow it
yeah,
for you. How
yeah.
did you get interest in the medical industry specifically
Oh,
as a non-physician yourself?
yes. This is a really great question. Thank you for asking. It's very simple. It's completely serendipitous. Like, I didn't, most of us go to college, undergrad, right? And I sure didn't set out to say, like, I mean, I thought I was going to be a banker. Like,
Hmm.
I was going to be, another Gordon Gekko. I wanted to be on Wall Street. And, I mean, the Netherlands, we trade tulips. Like, I was like, oh, I'm going to end up being a trader. I've always loved finance. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I got a job with KPMG in 97. And I loved it, except it didn't love me. I realized that I was not long for being a good person who sat in a cubicle. And so I ended up, I mean, this is a long story, but my boss there was really great, totally helped me out after 6 months, goes, look, you're not going to make it here, man. This is really for real accountants. And you're more like a visionary guy that, and he would say, like, his name's Mark. You go, like, how'd you get this job? And I'm like, well, it paid a lot of money when I graduated. And I said, yes. I mean, like, that's how you got the job. Anyways, to make a very long story short, I ended up working at a real estate investment trust. And I worked for a bunch of real estate powerhouses. And I met a bunch of surgeons through that. And it was really great because that was the time when you were doing sale and leasebacks on hospital properties. So I was responsible for acquisition and disposition analysis, meaning like the three of us are like, hey, we want to build a hospital, because you were allowed to do that and be a physician back then before the ACA banned it.
Yeah.
And so what happened was we were looking to build surgical hospitals and we were looking to build ambulatory surgery centers. And remember, this was before anybody really made any money on ASCs, right? This is the early days of USPI. And what happened was we found sites and we looked at them and then we started developing them. And what happened was these surgeons, who were my great friends, basically picked me up and said, we know you love working at a REIT. We really want to do this around the country. Will you come and help us? And I was a young guy. I mean, I was 25 years old. And so I did. And that was my first real introduction to, like, well, what does a surgeon do? How does a surgeon work? When do you go in? What's the difference between all the specialties? What procedures do they do? How do they do them? What do they cost? What's an RVU? How does all this work? What's a CPT code? Like, I had to learn all of that, right, as kind of a 25-year-old kid. And it was a really good learning experience. I got to, in 2006, man, I was way down on the lower end of the totem pole as an employee, but we sold out and I made a little money. And my heart was to help ASCs in New York City contract directly with large employers. And so there were a couple of banks who gave me a little bit of cash and said, hey, for the next 18 months, we want to figure out, this was the meeting with one of the banks. Dutch, you're really good at this. You know all the doctors in New York City. Will you help us figure out why we're paying X for a total joint and Y at a different place? And I don't want to say the hospital names because they get upset when I say this kind of stuff. So I try not to upset them on purpose. I wait for like a really good time to upset them.
Right.
But the point was, yeah, so this is 2006. I took like 2007 off, and there was kind of this big crash in New York City, and nothing was going on. But by 2008, I'd started a direct contracting firm, meaning I took surgery centers in Manhattan. There were 3 at the time, and now there's one, big one. And there were 240-ish partners. And so I took all the specialties from those partners, and I tried to match them up with employers. And that's how I learned about insurance, because I didn't know anything before 2007 about insurance. And so my journey was, I built that company, built another one that went out of business, and then we built another one that we sold. So we've sold 3. And about 2015, 16, I started talking on LinkedIn like you and I are talking now. And then I moved to Twitter about 2017, 18. And that's when I realized, like, there was no one talking about the structural inequities between nonprofit health systems, for-profit health systems, carriers being for-profit and nonprofit. I didn't even know there were nonprofit carriers. I had no idea. And then I started getting involved in Washington, D.C. So all of this is really in the last 10 years, where you took all this knowledge about how do you build an OR for cardiology, how do you build an OR for neurosurgery, whether it be spine or brain, how do you build an OR for ENT, how do you build an OR for all these specialties? And I knew all that. I knew site selection really well. I knew prices of every procedure. I knew what the ranges were by CMS and what insurance paid throughout the country. And I really, really, really wanted to build a commodities exchange, which I have not yet built. But I really, 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 that's what I want to build. And so I'm now 3 companies deep that I've sold. One company went to crap, which was a great learning lesson, and we can talk about that. And then this new one that we started last December called Blixa. In the meantime, I ended up on some boards for different societies, and I just try to fly around the country, meet with great doctors, and say, look, I understand what the problems are. Let's talk about them together. I think one of the big challenges doctors have, I mean, one of many, right? But the overarching one is, and I've only seen this since 1997, so I don't know very much, but it's docs are highly competitive. And you love that because in the OR, you need that confidence. Like to get through medical school and really to get through residency or internship, residency, and fellowship, you need to be highly competitive with a guy next to you. But when it comes to private practice or independent practice of medicine, you need to be highly cooperative. And so, the first line on my new slide deck is co-opetition. Like, how do you cooperate where you need to cooperate, and how do you compete where you need to compete? Because what I don't want is neurosurgeon A in New York City looking at the neurosurgeon B and not competing. I mean, I want them both to be the very best, right? That would be against their nature. But when it comes to running their business, like, who's your accountant? Like, I don't think you need to compete on that level. Who provides your electricity? I don't think you need to compete on that. Who provides your employee benefits? You don't need to compete on that. Who does your HR? Again, you don't. And there's this long list of things like payer contracts. And today, we will have, I'm in Texas, we had a group of doctors, about 200, go, well, I don't want to work with those guys over there. They're an anesthesiology group. They screwed us over. And so we don't want to work with them on lowering our expenses. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're spending $2 million. You could spend $1 million, but you just want to, you're just angry? Like the real enemy here is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. And so why don't we compete against Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas and against the health systems, and then we come together and do the right thing. So I think that's kind of the short story of it all.
Yeah, I mean, I've had my share of temper from time to time, but I've never been angry for $1 million. That's
no, it's not something to be angry about.
Yeah,
I agree. And I'm like, all of you are going to get back like $8,500. Like, I don't, like, I will never make enough money where I go, I don't want $8,500. Like, like,
right.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
People make that in a month. That is a lot of Jack.
Well, one of my, I love Jack Daniels.
Yeah, me too.
One of my favorite questions to ask people who are high performers and just busy, right? Just truly busy people. You talk about flying around the country, you're running a company, you're sitting on these boards, you're also posting multiple times a day on X. You got the Rojas report, you have all these shows. It's the simple age-old question of how do you find the time? But the way I want to tailor this question to you is because you're a finance guy. And as you say, it's in our nature to compete. It's in our nature to take care of patients. It's in your nature to seek the ROI, right? So
yep.
How do you justify taking the time out of your day each day for the amount of communications that you do, not in a meeting, not on a board, but just talking directly to the medical community, conversations like this, for example? What is the ROI that you get from this?
Oh, look, in accounting, there's something called goodwill. So let's say you have a company and it's worth $100 million. And the accountants like me come in and do a valuation of your business. And we say, well, cash wise, it's worth 60 million, right? But everybody in the country loves this company. What we'll do is we'll assign in the valuation, we'll say goodwill equals $40 million, right? And so I think everything I do doesn't have what I would pitch as like a direct return of invested capital, or ROIC, which is my favorite little ratio. So I don't think there's an ROIC on doing events like this, but I know that in the long run there is. And I know I'll capture it through goodwill. And look, getting the message out, the American people have no idea. They have no idea how complicated all this is. And there's really no one who says to them, well, I understand how CMS works. I understand how the AMA works. I also understand how societies work. I also understand how commercial insurance work. I know how health systems work. I know how academics work. And we can all just nicely put all that together, right? And so I think I'm one of, I mean, there's probably 50 people like me who just wants to say like, hey, like we understand how to fix the problems, help us fix them. And the way that one of the big reasons I do podcasts and videos and is like, I just want to unite more docs. The great thing about social media and the reason that I like constantly on physicians to be on social media when you have time is because it amplifies our voices. Like nobody's going to pay attention if it's one loon on X like me. But if it's a million doctors on X going like, hey, here's the problem with this, and here's the problem with this, and here's the problem with this. I really want to spend 30 minutes with a patient, but my managed care contract keeps me from doing that because I got to see 40 patients in a day on my clinic day. I can't do that, right? And so the more we speak up and the more we speak out, I think we're going to do better. And, you know, frankly, I have 2 young kids, one's 3 and one's 7. I think when you become a dad, everything switches, you know, and you figure out like, hey, I want to leave this planet a little bit better than where I got it. And I love my kids, man. And I think all of that's under the category in accounting, what I would call goodwill. And so the answer to your question really is goodwill.
So, Dutch, I got to ask you a question that's been like burning a hole in my brain. I've probably given a copy of Thomas Stanley's book, The Millionaire Next Door, to a
Yeah.
couple dozen people.
Yeah.
And the reason is there's a whole chapter on doctors, right? A whole chapter in that book. And it's one of the best-selling
Books
wealth,
of all time. Sure.
yeah, of all time, right? Now, why is it, though, that doctors seem to be so bad at business? Now, I'm not saying all doctors are. Some doctors are
Yep.
really good. Why are, like, what's the root cause of us just trying to avoid the business side, saying, look, I just rather, as you said at the beginning, I'd rather work for HCA and just be an employee and like not have to deal with any of this. What is it about our DNA that's like that?
Well, you said a phrase, I don't know if we're allowed to say it online, which is, oh, shoot, I just forgot what you said. But it was like a triggering word for a lot of people, a
What's
phrase.
that?
Anyways, we'll remember. I'll remember in a second. Um, Look, I really do fight back on this phrase of, because people like to say, well, doctors are bad at business. They are and they aren't, right? As a whole, from a macro level, there are, as you said, Dr. Wang, a lot of really good business people that are also physicians. I think you have the temperament to be good for it, but I think your training. I mean, you guys, look, you're institutionalized for 20 years almost. Like that's a long time. If you're focused on patients, patient care, outcomes, quality metrics, and then you got to worry about, are you doing your RVUs? And then, you worry about things that MBAs don't have to worry about. And I'm not an MBA, so I like to make fun of them. Well, I think you ought to get a master's in finance if you're going to like be an MBA. And I think MBAs are weak. Okay. Not all MBAs are weak. Not all, right? Like you got to say that, otherwise people complain. Oh, I'm an MBA and I'm really good. I'm like, well, maybe. Anyways, the Millionaire Next Door is a book I don't love. But I think that physicians, and I think you know this well, haven't taken the time to learn the business aspects. And you did take the time to learn how to be the best at what you do. When I started in the business, and I'm turning 50 next week, I think that business people and physicians had really good relationships. And somewhere along the line, and I'm going to say 2010, 11, 12, something went really wrong because that relationship really went south. And now for the first time in probably 10 years, I feel like we're building that trust relationship where we realize like we need each other. The difficulty is like, how do you know who to trust? Like that's a really difficult problem. What I tell our clients is I've been preaching publicly for so long that I probably have more risk in doing a business transaction with a doctor, because imagine if I mess up. Like you'll have 20 doctors going like he's a total piece of crap, don't believe a word he says, right? And like I would never want that. That would break my heart. And so are doctors good at business? I think they are. It took a while for them to be good at getting to the ASC level. I think if we just give them a chance and give them
Help.
then I think we can do it. Now, The real answer to your question is you are empirical thinkers. You research based on tests and white papers, and you look backwards. Good business people, which I think are visionaries, look forward and really probably have a lot of faith because they have to look into the abyss and say, well, this has never really been done before. I don't really know how to do it, but I'll wake up on Monday and I'll take a step forward. And by the way, the reason that we can do that versus a physician doing that is because we're not going to lose our med mal coverage tomorrow. We're not going to kill a patient tomorrow. I'm being dramatic, of course. If physicians became less risk averse, that would be a problem in your medical practice. But in business, that's not a problem. In a business, we can fail, right? You hear that all the time. Fail and fail often. And I'm like, that would be the worst advice you could ever give a surgeon.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can do all the work you want on a cadaver, but don't do it on a real person. So I think our relationships are highly complementary because of that, and we need to figure out how to do better together. But I work with a bunch of docs that are, that said in the mid-90s, hey, I'm going to build an ASC. Hey, I'm going to build a physician-owned hospital. And there were no blueprints for that. And they literally took 6 months off practice, or they practiced half-time, right? One guy, Dr. Jamie Cash in Tulsa, Oklahoma, orthopedic surgeon, now retired. He built Oklahoma Surgical Hospital. They do 20,000 cases a year. I mean, it's an amazing hospital, physician-owned. He took a year off clinical practice. And I'm like, well, did you hire a consultant or anything? He's like, no, I figured it out myself. I studied mechanical engineering. So, like, clearly he's good at business. Like, he figured it out. And it's a phenomenal hospital. So, yeah, I mean, it's a long-winded answer. But I think docs are good at business if we can get them there.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So Dutch, we're going to start trying to land the plane. I have 3 specific goals as we bring this to an end. First of all,
Okay.
I have to disclose to you that Dr. Wang got his MBA a couple years ago. So I officially, on his behalf, challenge you to do an arm wrestling contest whenever we meet in person.
I'll definitely lose. He looks strong. He
So-
looks really strong.
Yeah. So that's
And-
one down. And so now, as I said, as we bring this to a close, I want to do plugs, and then I want to leave you with the last word. So first, plugs. I have one. We're talking about socioeconomic issues. We talked about the CSNS. The upcoming meeting this October before the CNS meeting in LA, the CSNS meets the 2 days leading into that meeting, October 10th and 11th. Go online now, pre-register. Dr. Lou Toomey Allen is the chair this year for the CSNS. He's been on the show several times. He's a champion for so many of the issues we're talking about. If you're going to be in LA, if you're going to CNS, please register for the CSNS meeting. There's no charge. Come by, learn more about this, come to the floor and see the parliamentary style debates. It's a lot of fun. I will be there. With that, Dutch, please plug your million media outlets for our listeners, which we'll link to.
Look, if I could say anything, I would just say, hey, let's connect on X, because I love connecting with docs, whether it's on X or LinkedIn. That's where I do most of them. And let's just have a conversation. Let's help teach the American people and other doctors how they can really enjoy healthcare, and that healthcare can be affordable and accessible for everyone if we work together. That'd be my biggest plug ever. I want affordable and accessible care for everyone. That's the dream, and that's the hope. And we know what to do to get there. We just need more people to get on board.
Yeah, well, then I will plug for you the Rojas Report. The videos are out YouTube, I think, and often on X, and then also the new Doctor's Lounge podcast with
the Doctor's Lounge. That's so fun.
You, DeGiorgio, Sanat Dixit, Anish Koka, Dan Choi. I think all of them, but Dan, have been on this podcast as well. I was just on an episode recently.
Yes, you did great. I edited that episode when I got home. It was great.
Thank you. I'm sorry you weren't there.
Me too.
So we'll link to all these things. They're phenomenal resources for people who are, like I was a brief year ago, just starting to get interested in these kinds of policy and regulatory and economic side of the healthcare industry. But to give you the final word, Dutch, we spent this conversation focusing more on you and your activities and not about all of these policy questions and issues facing the modern medical landscape. So as a parting thought, perhaps, maybe think of your top 3 favorite policy issues or bees in your bonnet or things that doctors aren't thinking about that you are thinking about for us,
Mhm.
and just give that to our listeners for things to look up or listen to the conversations on the Doctor's Lounge about.
There's 35 states that still have certificate of need. I think it's a huge, huge challenge. States that have certificate of need are priced at about 25% higher on their premiums than states that don't. Surprisingly, California does not have certificate of need. It's mostly eastern states that do, and they don't need to have it. You have states that are run by free market people like Senator Rand Paul, and they're dominated by 4 health systems from east to west. I think certificate of need is a great at-home issue that you have to deal with your governor on. And I want to see more doctors get to build hospitals and surgery centers and nursing homes and radiology centers and LTACs and all this other stuff. That'd be number one. Site neutral payments is number 2. I think it's something that Dr. Oz could fix tomorrow, like tomorrow, because there's no reason. CMS assigns reimbursement. We don't negotiate with Medicare. We don't get to say, well, there's 20 of us, we want another dollar. We don't get to do that. And the last thing I'll say is, I think we as a community have to come together. Like, I think it's PHA, and until someone shows me otherwise, that's where my support's going to be. We've got to find a place that says physicians have a voice, physicians can do, and the powers that be, let's call them the MBAs of the world, have kept us apart. The MBAs and the where that's their primary job. The MBAs out of business school and the lawmakers have gotten together. They spend about $1 billion. Well, it's like 800 million a year that we know of. If you get 1 million doctors to give a little money, like, we win. And some people call that buying a legislator, and I'm like, hey man, I just want to be free. If that costs me $1,000 a year or whatever, like, okay, then give me my freedom. I'll pay $1,000 a year. But that's better than all the stuff we're going through, So I think those are probably my 3 things.
Phenomenal. Well, for everyone listening and watching, all of this stuff will be linked to in the show notes and on our social media posts. Please, as mentioned, come to the CSNS meeting in LA. I'll see you there. For now, until we inevitably have you back on again, because you're automatically re-invited in the near future. Thank you again for your service to the country, in the Marines and otherwise. The great and powerful Dutch Rojas.
Thank you guys for having me. This was a privilege. Really enjoyed it.